Aaron Murphy.
Also in attendance this evening from legal, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. From Natural Resources and Land Planning, Stephen Eister. And Lisa Middleton, permit technician. There are some procedural rules that we need you to follow. When your case number and petitioner's name are called, please approach the podium. When you approach the podium, please state your name, address, and confirm that you've been sworn in. Everyone forgets this part. Name, address, and confirm that you've been sworn in. The petitioner or its agent will have 10 minutes to make a presentation. All other persons wishing to participate or speak will have 3 minutes. The petitioner will then have an additional 5 minutes for rebuttal if needed. The time periods as stated will be kept by the board. Any information, such as pictures or plans that have not been previously submitted as part of the petition and that you intend to submit for consideration in support of your petition must be individually presented and accepted by the board. After acceptance by the board, you must submit the item to staff for it to be entered and made part of the permanent record. The board bases its decision on competent and substantial evidence, which is submitted and which meets the criteria set forth in the city's Code of Ordinances. Please be sure to clearly state your hardship criteria during your presentation. A majority of the board is needed to approve your variance. The variance granted by the board will only be for what is shown on the site plan and must be in compliance with any terms and conditions stated by the board. All other city codes will also need to be met. If the case is approved, your variance will expire 2 years from the date of decision. If your case is continued, it will either be continued to the next month's VRB board agenda or to the next available position on an upcoming VRB board agenda. If your case is denied, you may wish to have the variance review board's decision appealed by the city council. You must file a petition for review of the board's decision within 14 days of the board's written decision. You will not be able to pull any permits until that 14-day review period has passed. Your cooperation in ensuring that this meeting is run smoothly is greatly appreciated. Can I have a motion to approve the June 11th VRB board meeting minutes? All right.
Second.
By Mr. Fry, second by Mr. Murphy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. All right, at this time, I'll ask legal staff to confirm whether there are any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. Will the board members please state whether or not they've have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
I would like just to add to the record that VRB 24-13, the applicant is a friend of mine, but I have no family or financial obligation to that person, so I can be impartial.
And I'm sorry, you said it's VRB 24?
24-13.
13, okay, thank you. Furthermore, will the board members please state whether or not they've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, I'd ask staff if there are any changes to the agenda that we need to address. Doesn't look like it. So Lisa, would you mind conducting a swearing in? Anyone?
There are some individuals outside of the chambers, so we need to get them to come.
Okay. In the meantime, for anyone in the audience, if there's a chance that you're going to speak tonight, now would be you should stand to be sworn in. Even if you don't think you're going to speak, if there's some outside chance that you're going to speak, it's a good idea to go ahead and get sworn in now. Otherwise, you're going to be the center of attention when we have to do a separate swearing in just for you. All right, at this time, if you'll be speaking this evening, please stand to be sworn in.
Do you swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Stephen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So the first case of the night is VRB 24-12. The applicant is Michael Suzman, and the owner is Michael Suzman. The applicant is Shalom Halfon. The address is 105 West Florabraska Avenue. The property is zoned residential single family, RS 50. The request is to reduce the east yard side setback from 7 feet to 3 feet. And the applicable code section is section 27-156, table 4-2. The schedule of area, height, bulk, and placement regulations of RS 50 district setbacks are 20 feet from front, 20 feet from rear, and 7 feet from the sides. There was a previous BLD in there is a BLD 24-05, and that's for the addition that is in front of you today. So this is the overall map of the site. And you can see there's an alley that runs along the side here. This is the site plan. In the rear, there's an existing single-family home, and they're looking to do an addition to the front of the structure. Here's a close-up of that addition in red. As you can see on the side right here, they're reducing it from 7 feet down to 3 feet to line up with the existing structure to continue the line forward. All parties and reviewers were consistent with conditions. This is the section of the variance that the hardship criteria. This is the applicant's responses. The house was built at the wrong setback to today's code. So that's kind of the main part of that. Here's the second response: no negative impacts on the health and safety. No actions were taken since the homeowner used the alley for 7 years. He thought this was part of his land, so he wasn't concerned about the setback. And then wanted to achieve and accommodate today's living standard. And then this is in harmony with the comprehensive plan. And then the required conditions for the VRB: the site will comply with chapters 5, 17.5, 21, 22, 23, and 26, and all technical standards of the City of Tampa in chapter 27, unless waived to this request. And then if you guys have any comments or concerns, I'm available.
Just one quick question. Yep. Are we being asked to verify or grandfather in the existing property to 3 feet, or is it just for the addition?
It's for the addition. The other part of the house was built prior to the setbacks. Okay. So that is okay. So it'd be for the addition.
All right, thank you.
All right, is the applicant here this evening? All right, come on up, and you have 10 minutes to give a presentation explaining your hardships.
My name is Shalom Halfon. I'm with Premier Builders. I sworn. And
Yes.
What else?
Your
Address.
address?
My address is 2404 South Hale Avenue, Tampa, Florida 33629. So I'll speak, and if I need them, they're gonna. So basically, the existing house, as it is right now, the existing lot is only 45 width, which is in conflict with RS 50 zoning of today this code, City of Tampa. This is one of the hardship that we find out, and also the owner using there is an alley that is 15 feet as of right now, that's not being used for any other purposes than the owner. 7 years, that's what we know, probably more than that, since he purchased the house. And right now it's not really affecting anything if we're gonna add the 3 feet. Also, the house right now is 3 feet from the lot line, which if it was RS 50, which is 50 feet wide, we didn't really need to do anything to it, and we will get this permit approved. But it's not like that, and rules comes probably after the fact. And so also in the future purposes, if, for example, if the alley will be split in the future, it's not gonna affect anything because the alley is 15 feet, so the owner will get 7.5 feet, so the new setback will be 10.5, which right now, as far as using the alley, we have much more. We have like, from the existing build, we have like 18 foot. Also, we're talking about continuing the line of the house, so it's not really affecting anything and stay really the same. Just the length of the house gonna be longer. So that's basically it. And yeah, any questions?
We'll have an opportunity to ask you questions in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Does that complete your presentation for now?
You need to say your name.
So my name is Michael Sussman, 105 West Florabraska Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33603. I have been sworn in. I'm the owner of the current address. When the house was originally sold to me, it was sold under the premise that the alley was part of the property. My agent, the seller's agent, the title company, and their documentation all told me that. So I'd been living under that pretense for this long. No neighbor has ever used that land. It's completely fenced in. The fence has never been altered since I purchased it. So yes, in order for these gentlemen to help with this project and keep the house on the same line, it wouldn't be affecting anyone else's property or a usable structure right now. That's all I have to add.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? All right, seeing none, I'm going to open it up to questions from the board for either the applicant or for staff.
I have a question.
Sure.
According to the letter from Tico, it says if the easement exists, no structures or buildings are permitted within the easement area. But the site plan that we have shows some kind of a metal building or something in there. Is that yours?
There's a shed.
The shed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a shed on the northeast corner of the property.
And does that belong to you?
Yes,
And if Tico asks, you'll be willing to remove that?
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you need it.
For I think we said anything, like we said everything that really needs to be told.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for a motion from the board.
I move that a variance request for case VRB 24-12 for property located at 105 West Florabraska be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing to reduce the east yard setback from 7 feet to 3 feet with an encroachment of eaves and gutters based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-8 of the city code, specifically that the house is built on a non-conforming lot, which is only 45 feet wide. The house was built 3 feet from the lot line. If the property was RS 50, 50 feet wide, it would already meet the setback. There was also a 15-foot alley to the east side of the property, which is the most impacted parcel based upon the encroachment of the easement, encroachment of the setback, excuse me, and that the addition would be continuing in the line of the existing home and with the 3-foot setback as it exists on the home.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Feldman, second by Ms. Walrath. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, your variance is approved 6-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
That's it, we should go?
Yep, you're good.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
good night. The next case is VRB 24-13.
All right, like Samantha said, the next case is VRB-24-13. The owner and applicant is Wesley Rodebush. The address is 3914 West Bayview Ave. The zoning is residential single family. The request is to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 0 feet for a carport. The section of the code is 27-156, table 4-2, schedule of height, bulk and placement regulations of RS 60. Setbacks are 25 feet front, 20 rear, and 7 feet on the sides. There's an old complaint for a chimney removal, but that does not impact this variance. This is a map of the site, and you can see the carport actually in this aerial right here. It is attached to the main structure. This is a site plan, and then here's a zoomed in version with the request to go from 25 to 0. As you can see, the carport is in the red hatched area. Everybody found the project consistent or consistent with conditions. At the time of permitting, there is a tree, but it looks like the carport was constructed just outside the protective radius of that. So that will be confirmed at the time of permitting. But the tree does not look to be impacted by the carport. This is 27-80, and then we'll run through their hardship. The home was built in 51 to 52. The stacked 2-car garage is too narrow to open the doors for cars to be parked in today, forcing his wife and kids to park in the driveway exposed to the Florida elements. The driveway containing the carport is protected from traffic each way on either side by large oak trees between the location and the road. The garage dimensions and design are original to the house and have never been modified. The garage is simply too narrow to allow for practical application. And then the carport would allow for both protection of my wife and kids from the harsh Florida elements and create an aesthetically pleasing design for the neighborhood. And then the concept was from looking over 50 other carports in the neighboring homes. And then the site will comply with Chapter 5, 17.5, 21, 22, 23, and 26, and all technical standards of the City of Tampa, and Chapter 27, unless ways specific to the request. And if you guys have any comments, I'm available.
Thank you.
Do we need to see the site plan again?
We're just trying to figure out numbers on the
Oh,
site
okay.
plan.
Okay.
All right, is the applicant here this evening? All right, come on up. And just a reminder to state your name, address, and confirm that you've been sworn in.
My name is Wesley Rodebush. The address is 3914 West Bayview Avenue, and I have been sworn in. So I apologize in advance. I'm not a builder, engineer, or anything, so if I say something incorrect or out of place, I do apologize. Thank you. So just running through real quickly, the hardship was already stated. The garage only allows for my Jeep, which has a very narrow body and very short doors to open it. I can squeeze into it, but we've owned 3 other cars and since 2008 when we owned the house, and we've never been able to open a door in any other car in that garage. It wasn't an issue until we had 2 kids, and then my wife came in one day and they're all soaking wet from the rain, carrying 2 kids crying with all the luggage and stuff, and decided to do something about it. Unbeknownst to me, I don't know this process, so I'm learning about permitting as I go here. And the process of this whole application, I went ahead and wrote down what each division said in their approvals. No division had any issue with it. The only one, natural resource review, is constructed over pre-existing driveway. Like he was saying, the grand tree it's outside of the zone for the tree next to it. Tico just asked that we look at any underground facilities. There are no underground facilities, and there's no electric wire to the carport, so it's not, got that on board. Transportation review didn't have any issues. Stormwater, water didn't have any issues. I got signatures from all my immediate neighbors. None of the neighbors immediately around me had any issues. I sent out over 125 notices to neighbors because the 300-foot cone of notices that you normally send out, I was told typical is 20 to 30 houses that you'd send that to. Well, directly behind us is a condominium place, so all the members of the condominium got one, including people that live as far away as other states, Canada, Australia, and China. So there was one person that sent in a negative review, what have you, from today at about 12:30. That was the only one. By my recollection, this is from a P.O. box that is 4 miles away for a asset company that owns 8 condos in the condominiums behind us. I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't consider that exactly a part of the immediate neighborhood for someone that doesn't live in the area. I hope that the neighbors immediately around me can kind of show support for it. I apologize if I seem nervous. I am nervous. I'm a nurse. This is not my element. I'm definitely out of my element. Just make sure there was nothing else I wanted to try and cover. So this is just the area. Do I just put it on this projector over here? This is the area where the reviews were sent to. I don't know if that's. So you can see this are the immediate neighbors, none of whom had any issue. I got a couple of curious phone calls, but everyone seems to be in support of it. My neighbor next door to me actually honked on the way over here and said good luck. And then the carport was built with the, I grew up on a farm building sheep barns and workshops with my dad. So we went around the neighborhood when we decided to do something about it. I have a computer with over 53 houses that we viewed that have carports of similar dimensions and distance from the street. We took that idea and our prior experience building those barns and workshops and built something that was big enough to fit easily in the space and open the doors and keep people dry and out of the elements, open the back hatch, be able to get stuff out for the kids and dog. And then later found out that we were too close to the front property line. And then I wanted to just show, sorry, apologize for the delay. This is images, I hope you can see that.
Yeah, I think those are in our board packet as well.
Okay. So the main things I want to show is this is the tree here they're talking about. That's a view from traffic coming down the street westwardly. It's not as though the carport is in an area, is the main thing I'm trying to depict. It's not as though the carport is an area where someone could veer off the road and easily hit it or anything like that. They would run into large oak trees before that ever happened. This is looking up that same street the opposite way. And then, I apologize again. these two large oak trees surround the property on the other side. So there's trees all around the front of the property. It's not as though it poses a risk to people driving down the street. One of the reviews was from the city transportation or something like that, who said just to keep the sides open, that they had no issue with you, that there was no obstruction of view or anything like that. I guess with that, I don't have too much else new I can present or otherwise present, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? All right, seeing none, questions from the board?
I did have one. By the way, you did fine. Don't worry about it. What is the distance between the carport at the edge of the property and the street? There looks like there's a buffer there, but I can't tell what the distance is. Is it 20 feet?
At the edge of property,
Yeah.
so from the side neighbor's property?
No, I'm sorry, from the street back to your, I'm looking at the site plan. It looks like it says 20.5. Can you just confirm that for me?
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay, so, it'll be, that is 20.8 feet, the distance here.
Right, but then from the edge of the carport to the street, that's
20.5.
20.5 feet?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And what is that, just a grass line, tree line?
Are you talking here?
Yes, sir.
So there's a small 4-foot fence that runs all the way along the distance of the carport here. And then this is just a grass line and then the tree.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And you've already built this,
Yes, ma'am.
so the photograph of the wooden structure, that's already there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have a permit when you did it?
No, ma'am. I found out about all this after the fact. Like I said, I come from a different area where you needed something, you just sort of built it. And I didn't even know anything about anything when it comes to permitting. I'm learning all this for the first time as I go through this process. But I'm trying to do it the right way now.
When did you construct this?
This has been around almost 4 years. Probably, yeah, 4 years now.
So this is the completed state of, this is what you plan on keeping?
I plan on making it whatever is in compliance that the city tells me I have to do. I'll change it or alter it in any way that needs to be done.
Any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, if you need it.
I can't think of anything else I can say.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for motion or discussion from the board.
I hate when it comes to us after the fact. No matter how well it looks like it may be built, we don't really know. It was never submitted for permit. It's also like 21 feet in length.
Roughly 20 feet.
20 feet, okay, I'm trying to read the number here. It looks like 20 feet, 8 inches.
Yeah.
I don't mean to,
So we've already closed the public hearing.
sorry.
Okay, and I'm not quite sure, the average length of a car, according to Google, is about 15 feet in length.
Yeah.
So you've got almost 6 feet more than the car length. Well, how did you happen to, if you didn't get permits, how did you happen to come up with this?
No.
Yep. Since we closed the
Questions?
I can't ask that.
Yeah.
You're right, sorry, my
It's okay.
bad.
I'd love to
We
answer.
close it, no, they're absolutely right, I'm not allowed to ask you questions, you just built this dimension because this is what you thought, okay. I'm not thrilled, I hate it when it comes back after.
Yeah, I mean, look, go ahead. Did you?
No. I would just say why. How long have you lived in the city?
Nope.
Can't,
I
know, done it?
These are questions we
know.
asked.
I'm sorry, never mind.
can't.
Strike that. Can I say that?
We did hear
No,
that you purchased the house
I will say this.
yourself.
I appreciate the fact that this was built for his need, but I also, in looking at the package that was submitted to us and going through it on my computer, there are so many of these in that community, and it just keeps scrolling. and scrolling. And so to deny this, to me, would be ridiculous.
Well-
When all of these other, and some of them look great, some of them look pretty janky, some of them look like they,
So-
were purchased at Walmart. So, I mean,
But,
And I mean, we've seen
I
so
think that.
many of these construct, I mean, I don't think
There's
we've-
so many.
I don't think we've seen a variance for a carport that wasn't already constructed.
Well,
Yeah.
A
and
condition
probably
that
not
it's
put
never
into
to be
this.
enclosed.
But to be fair, that, the request here is for a variance to reduce the setback from
Correct.
25 feet to 0 feet. Although it does appear that there are lots of carports in the area, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all in violation or needed a variance.
Yes.
That said, when we sort of look at the totality of this, there is a large gap between the edge of the pavement and the property line that gives me some comfort. When we just look at the request here from 25 feet to 0 feet, it does sound like a big ask.
Agreed.
And so I was expecting a carport that ran right up to the edge of the road.
correct.
Looking at the survey and looking at the pictures that the applicant has presented has given me a little bit more comfort that my concerns related to the aesthetics and the look and the traffic and safety concerns are immediately are lessened, right? So, I can't give any weight to the fact that this carport was installed for this gentleman's family, but as far as hardship, I don't see that there is an injury to the health, safety, or welfare to others. I'm inclined to support the request.
With
What
conditions maybe,
happens-
that it's never to be enclosed. I know that that's,
Yeah.
That's it.
That-
So
that-
we've talked about that in the past. Because it's a carport, I think that essentially goes unsaid, that it not be enclosed, because it's a carport. If it's a garage, it's a different story.
We do have a condition from transportation too, that it can't,
It
that
can't be enclosed.
portions of it
That's
cannot be
true.
enclosed.
And I would echo what Ms. Decker said as far as the buffer, and as far as what Ms. Rollrep was concerned about. Look, we all agree that applicants should seek permitting before rather than after, but this board's typical approach has been to evaluate these scenarios as if they came to us fresh. If this were to be built, would we allow it? And given that this is very typical, given that this is in its condition, to be honest, it's one of the best looking carports I've seen. And it does not appear to be either inconsistent with the neighborhood or problematic from the neighbor's standpoint. And from a practical difficulty standpoint, it's a 1950s house. Not surprising that it has an unusable garage by today's car standards. And that you've got trees out by the road that sort of shelter this. It seems to fit here on this property without any issue. So I would echo what Ms. Decker said and say I'm in support of it.
My question is, since it was built without a permit, what happens with city inspection and submitting drawings and?
I think we heard that it's going through permitting
Yeah.
now. I assume that that's why it's before us,
Yep.
because the permit can't be issued.
They can't issue the permit until we approve the variance.
I'm sorry?
I said they can't issue the permit until we approve the variance.
So, with that said, I'm okay with making a motion, and then everybody can vote how they want to vote. I would move that the variance for request for case VRB 24-13 for property located at 3914 West Bayview Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 0 feet for a carport, based upon the applicant presenting competent and substantial evidence in the record and at this public hearing of an unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code. Specifically, that the carport is built with a 20-foot, roughly 20-foot buffer between the edge of the property and the road, thus mitigating the reduction in the front yard setback, that the practical difficulties exist of a 1950s home that the only way to have functioning parking, covered parking for this property is via a carport, and that it is, based upon evidence presented before us, the carport is consistent with neighborhood conditions.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Feldman, second by Mr. Fry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we can have
Okay,
discussion.
so I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said, but it bugs the crap out of me that we are coming here after the fact. And the last thing I want to do is encourage anybody who is out there watching this or looks in the records and says, oh, but he did it without a permit. Let's just build it, and then if we get caught, we'll come back here and get it approved. And for that reason, I cannot support it.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the variance, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Me, sorry.
Your variance is approved 5-1.
Oh, 16 was withdrawn also?
Yeah, 16 and
Yeah, I didn't notice that
16
either.
and 19.
Saw 19, I didn't realize that. Well,
All right, the next case on the agenda is VRB 2421. The owner is Semco Investments LLC. The applicant is Ricky Pederica. The property address is 4105 East Fowler Avenue. The zoning is industrial general. This variance has two requests, so it applies both criteria for the hardship criteria under 2780 for the reduction of tree retention from 50% to 25%. And then section 27-284 for the grand tree removal of 3 non-hazardous grand trees. And then the code sections are referenced below. 27-284.3.1, non-wooded sites have a minimum tree retention requirement of 50%. And then the other section is 27-284.2.5, permits for grand tree removal, application required documentation, standards, and criteria for decision, inspections, and petition for review. So there is a previous action under Florida statute 166.04151. There is a development agreement for the site that has gone through city council. This is the map of the site. This site actually includes all 3 buildings that are shown here. These U-shaped buildings are all part of this one development. This is the overall site plan, just to give you guys a clearer view of what the site looks like. This is the proposed site plan with the buildings pushed towards Fowler Avenue, and then the parking is off to the rear and to the side. In the development agreement as well, there's a future proposed transient corridor that runs across these back parking lot islands. Natural Resources was inconsistent. See the attached memo. There is one correction to the memo. The first line about the design exception for buffer reduction is not applicable to this site because of the mixed use nature of it. Everybody else, all the other reviewers were consistent with conditions. This is request, I broke the request down to present it to you guys as request 1 for the tree retention, and then I'll present the second request for the grand trees. So the request for tree removal falls under 27-280. And then the applicant responses, the project has a development agreement approval from the city and strong support from the University of South Florida, located right across the street. The project also has a requirement to do at least 10% affordable housing units per statute 166.04151, similar to the Live Local Act project for multifamily housing. The site is located at the southwest corner of Fowler Avenue, an ulterior roadway, and McKinley Drive, another ulterior roadway. These office buildings will be replaced with 3 residential buildings equivalent in scale to the existing ones, located at the intersection northeast, northwest, and southwest corners. The request is not for building scale, volume, or setbacks, but for tree removal. And then multiple stakeholders prior to council review and state law have influenced the project in such a way it cannot be attributed to the applicant. The project has a development agreement approval from the city and has jointly reviewed and strongly supported by the University of South Florida. And then the Harmony, the project has a development agreement. LU Objective 2.2 ensures continued prosperity and competitiveness of the city's premier employment centers. LU Policy 2.2.2 promote through redevelopment process the introduction of mixed-use development into the city's existing employment centers. And then LU Policy 2.2.5 encourage the development of additional workforce housing and employment centers by exempting non-residential uses. And then this is for the second request, is for the removal of 3 non-hazardous grand trees. So grand tree 1 is a live oak with a DBH measurement of 33, canopy measurements of 55 by 74, with a condition of C5, and is worth 15 mitigation trees. This is a photo of the trees. This is actually a whole tree line that is going to be removed with the proposed development because of how close it is to Fowler. Grand tree 2 is another live oak, 43 inches, 79 by 85 canopy measurement. The condition is a B8, and the mitigation is 27 type 1 trees. This tree is located next to building 3 in like a tree, like a pit. And then grand tree 3 is a laurel oak, 38 inches, canopy measurement of 41 by 42, C7. The mitigation is 5 type 1 mitigation trees. This is grand tree 3. And then this is the proposed development. As you can see, the buildings engage with Fowler Avenue. So the trees, these trees are no longer, these trees are being proposed to be removed. This is where the one grand tree is located here, and then the second one is here, and then so on. These are the site map, the grand tree in the far corner, then this tree here. These are live oaks. These 2 are live oaks. This one is the live oak in the pit, just to give you guys a reference. And then this is the laurel oak. This is alternative site plan 2. And then the standards for grand tree removal. And then the required conditions, the site will comply with chapter 5, 17.5, 21, 22, 23, and 26, and all technical standards of the city of Tampa, and chapter 27, unless specifically waived to the request. And then I'll be available for any comments. Yes?
I do have a question. I don't know if this is for you, Mr. Reister, or if it's for legal. We do have a development agreement in our packet. The development agreement says that the site plan cannot be changed based upon the development agreement, right? Or that there's any changes will require it to go back to the city for revision of the development agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct. Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. So as you're stating, you're bringing up the development agreement.
Yeah.
There is a condition that they have to apply for a variance. So just because this site plan is before the board, they still have the burden to present a hardship.
Yeah, and I
But the site
understand.
plan is not locked in.
Okay, all right. That my question was really just what consideration should we give as it relates to the development agreement? That is, I mean, the city follows its own rules. I get it.
Right.
But is there any consideration, or if so, what consideration should be given to the development agreement?
It is up to the applicant to present to the board with competent and substantial evidence of a hardship related to the reasonable reconfiguration in 27-80. That is their burden to do that. Just because there's a development agreement does not mean that the city or this board is tied to this site plan. They still have a burden to present the evidence to justify the removal of the trees and the reduction in the tree retention requirement. And again, I would just encourage the board that just because this site plan is in the development agreement does not mean that the city is tied to it.
Great. Thank you.
I have a quick question. We're talking about 3 trees or 4?
3.
3.
So what is the 4th tree in the diagram?
So,
Is that already being removed?
so tree 4, which is I think located in this corner right here, where my mouse is,
Yes.
looks to be preserved.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's just shown for.
For
Thank you.
alternative design purposes,
Thank
it
you.
is called out on that.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, the applicant's here. It has 10 minutes for its presentation. And again, just a reminder to state your name, address, and who you've been sworn in.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jim Schimberg with Shubin Law Group, 1001 Water Street, here on behalf of the applicant Semco. And Ricky's here as well, Victor Huggins, and our client representatives, as well as Taryn Savia from the University of South Florida. So this project was a little different, and staff did a really good job explaining it, but when we started the process, the client wanted to do student housing across from USF. He wanted to take advantage of the state statute that was the predecessor to Live Local that said if you did 10% affordable units in your project, you could go straight to city council without changing your zoning or land use designation. So at that point, we thought that it would be hopefully a quicker process. It was something that we thought the area needed. The client owns the 3 office buildings now, but he thinks that there's a better use. So we came forward to the city. They had not done one of these before. We had a tremendous amount of discussion at city council, several different hearings where they looked at the site plan very specifically. We had specific input from USF, who was also looking at sort of their master plan for the Fowler Avenue area and the corridor. They really encouraged us to move the buildings closer to Fowler, which impacted a couple of the trees. And so again, we went back and forth, and we clearly understood that we needed to come back here to this board. I mean, that unfortunately, because we did it under the state statute, and we actually got a development agreement that had a site plan attached, it was not a PD. Technically not a PD. If there would have been a PD, the city council could have approved these waivers and the removal of these trees. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it in this process. So even though we had tremendous discussion at city council and they had a lot of detail and attention to the site plan, we knew we had to come back. So that's where we are. It's a little bit different. I know we haven't seen one of these before because the city hasn't done one of these before. So while the advice you're given is, you have to look at this for your criteria, but I would ask you to at least consider the circumstances that led to the development agreement, the significant discussions that took place with respect to the site plan, the placement on the site, and you'll hear from USF as well as to how important that was to them, because the city council essentially continued us at one of our hearings and asked us to go back and meet with USF and try to work out something that they were okay with, which we did. So at this point, let me ask Ricky to come up and go through some of the specific details, and then I would ask Taryn from USF to come up and speak to you briefly at the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Board. Ricky Pederica, 308 East 7th Avenue with Dark Moss. I've been sworn. Thank you, Mr. Eister, for that presentation. It was comprehensive. I'll try to jump right into the criteria, leave room for Ms. Sabia. This is reasonable reconfiguration option 1. What is proposed here, this tree is, or 3 trees are now, 3 of the grand trees that we were proposing to remove now have building notch outs in an attempt to preserve them. This tree up here, just to re-clarify, is a tree that's on the back of parking along Fowler Avenue, 33-inch live oak. This tree here is the one that is being preserved in all options due to its corner condition. This tree here in the pit, or the tree well, is 43-inch live oak, and it's one of the nicest on the site. And then this tree here, at the corner of the building, is a 38-inch laurel oak, just to help paint the picture Mr. Ister set up. What this option is attempting to do is taking the existing floor plans in blue, these are unaltered from the original proposal, and then these floor plans are reduced slightly by these areas, and there need to be some pruning. But what that results in is 50,000 square feet of floor area reduction and approximately 78 units reduction due to these less outs. Option number 2 takes a slightly similar approach, but rather than acknowledge the loss of units, it intends to preserve it by extending south. So there's no change in floor area and there's no change in units. However, this shift of the building as it expands south impacts the potential transit line. So this is unique in any that I've done. This, I'd argue, is an impact to the flow and function of a potential regional transit system, as opposed to flow and function on the site. And that's, not something I've argued before, but really that is, I think that's a crucial consideration in what would seem to be an easy adjustment in any other case, except where there is a larger community asset that's being maintained or passively dedicated, if you will. A moment. So, our argument for these three, based on the site plan through the development criteria, which Ms. Pettis-Mackle spoke about, is that the preservation of these three trees in particular either impact the site plan too much by reducing the floor area and the unit count by almost an acre of floor area, or result in this larger connective potential being reduced. That is all I have for the grand tree portion. I'll ask Ms. Sabia to come forward to speak to the site planning generally from a USS perspective.
Thank you. Taryn Sabia, University of South Florida, 4202 East Fowler Avenue, and I have been sworn in. So we'd like to contribute our support toward the project and say that the University of South Florida appreciates the effort of city staff, city council, and the development team to work with the university. We really appreciate the focus on the pedestrian safety for our students within the project, the street and retail activation that has been a focus of the project, and the access to existing and future transit, as well as the improvements that we feel will benefit the entire Fowler corridor for the future. So it has been our pleasure to work with everyone on this, and we're happy to answer any specific questions.
Darren, can you just mention why you thought it was important to move the building up and also the
Sure.
transit corridor?
So in terms of the building being moved closer to the street, we felt that this helped in terms of being able to make better connections for that pedestrian safety, to be able to have access to existing transit through HART services that are there now on McKinley, as well as what we hope to be future transit connection, which is at the south portion of the site. So that piece in the preservation of being able to maintain what future transit potential there is important. We'll also note that one of the reasons that we see that as being important not only to this site, but that particular area on the south edge of the project site also would connect through to the Hillsborough County's redevelopment of Mosey property. So there's a number of things that are in process on Fowler Avenue, and having a more urban form is something that is being envisioned for the future.
This is Jim Schimberg again. I just had one other thought, that while we were working through city council, at one stage in our process, there were some issues from USF and from neighbors, and we said we can work with staff as we go through the process, and they said normally that would be okay, but in this particular case, because you have this development agreement and because your development agreement is tied to the site plan, you really can't change it without going back through this process. And we understand that that is technically what we knew we were getting into, but there was a tremendous amount of work done on the front end through these hearings to try to come up with a site plan that would not be flexible. Now, if you guys tell us we've got to change something, we're going to have to obviously do that, but we believe that there is a hardship just because of the fact that I don't believe it's precedent setting, because there's really no other projects right now that have this same designation and have this same state statute that they're going under. Most of them would be going through the PD process, which would basically cover that at the city council level. So.
Thank you. Okay. It looks like there are a couple people in the audience that would like to speak on this application, so come on up and you'll have 3 minutes.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the legal department. So you're only presenting the variance request regarding the removal of 3 grand trees and not the reduction of the mitigation?
I didn't think, I guess I thought that we're gonna make 2 presentations out of it.
It's one application.
Yeah, I apologize. I guess I would request some time to speak to the retention then. I misunderstood that aspect of this.
It's gonna have to be a
Sorry.
conversation with the board on whether or not you're gonna give them more time. You didn't address the second variance.
Great. Okay,
Well, one variance, right, because it's one application, but it's 2 components to it?
Correct, there's 2 variance requests in one application permit, one application.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's not.
I think we all understood it as we were addressing this as 2 separate, 2 pieces to it.
I agree. I thought it was being presented in 2 separate.
But when
So-
we vote, it
no,
will
no.
be.
yeah, so
It'll be 2 separate votes, but it all needs to
it
be
sounds like there
proposed
was
at
just
the
a
same time.
misunderstanding. I actually thought that the applicant was just going to rely on what Mr. Eister said as their hardship criterion, what was in the package. But all that said.
I'd like to make a motion, give the applicant a little more time to discuss the reduction in tree retention.
Second.
Okay, can you specify what the time is?
3 minutes, please.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Murphy for 3 minutes of additional time, second by Mr. Fry. If we could put 3 more minutes on that timer, please.
But can you vote on the motion?
Oh, sorry. All those in favor of the motion to extend the applicant's time by 3 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay.
Thank you, board members. Sorry for that little lapse or a little confusion there. To quickly bring you up to speed, there's 221 trees that we assessed on the site. 201 are protected under the code. Of those 201 trees, 33 of them are in poor condition, therefore not subject to the retention criteria. Of the remainder, 168, 60 of them are palm trees. Those are also not subject to the retention criteria, which leaves 108 trees at play, just to get you up to speed. We are proposing to preserve, of those 108, 34 trees. 33 smaller oaks and things, and then 1 grand oak. We're proposing to remove 71 protected trees and 3 grand oaks, which results in 74. Those 2 numbers together result in 31%. That's what we're proposing now. We're requesting 25 for a little safety net and for construction challenges that inevitably arise. The main location of the trees on the site, let me zoom back out, that contribute to the retention criteria. It's a little hard to tell because most of the green dots, those would usually count. Those are palms. But The trees along Fowler and McKinley very much contribute to this number. A couple trees internally, and then there's a bunch of small trees here on the south. These are mainly where the retention priorities, or the retention that we're proposing is captured. So we are requesting this because of all this development agreement, site plan conversation, and how you treat that is obviously your prerogative, but my assignment was to resolve the site plan that I was provided against the criteria, which is the reasonable use criteria, and that any adjustment to these buildings to preserve this Fowler Avenue would go against the negotiation that USF presented that was part of the development, the approved site plan of the development agreement, or would have knock-on effects for this transit corridor preservation negotiation that occurs during the development agreement. So the way the site is arranged, it's not a sort of homogeneous forest of trees where we can manipulate. It's an existing developed office where trees are falling in islands that, unless we preserve the islands or the parking lot exactly where it was in 1989, there's going to be a site plan impact to trees that were designed prior. Thank you for the extra time.
Okay. With that, I'm going to open it up for comments from the audience. And I think that we had a couple people come in late, so we might need to do a swearing in.
Raise your hand. Do you swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Just to get this issue out up front, since we gave the applicant some additional time and there are 2 variances being requested, can we give people who are speaking in the audience a little bit of additional time as well?
Sounds like we would need a motion to do that.
I would like to make a motion so that anyone who's speaking on in the audience, whether they're speaking for or against, should have, let's call it 4 minutes each.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Feldman, second by Mr. Fry. All those in favor of giving each audience member an additional minute, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so you will have 4 minutes should you need it.
I was just checking to see if the counter was,
Does it look good?
it's still at 3.
Okay.
I'll time.
Okay, all
right,
right.
just a reminder,
I won't
name,
take, I won't
address.
take the 4. Hi, my name is Caroline Bennett, 4116 West Santiago Street. I'm a founding member of TTAG. Here is the staff.
Just confirm that you've been sworn in.
Yes, I have been sworn in. Here's the staff report, which found it inconsistent. To get a project exactly the way they want it, they are asking for 2 variances from you and an additional administrative variance. The staff report also says that if the future rail gets approved, they will need a 4th variance. Their desire for something that is inappropriate, that needs this many exceptions to the code, is the epitome of a self-created hardship. Wanting something with so many things that have a problem that violate the code is a self-created hardship. They have submitted 2 acceptable reconfigurations. This project is over 1 million square feet. It's pretty obvious to me by looking at the reconfigurations that this project can be accomplished without the variances. One of the reconfigurations only reduced the area by 4.5%. To say that the city council approved the tree removal and the reduction and the variances is not accurate just because they approved the development agreement. If you look here, it says that the legal department has clarified that the structures may have to be redesigned to meet code requirements. In addition, the site is being restricted due to a potential future transit corridor. In other words, this may not be necessary at all. But the variance runs with the land. If you approve it, it is approved forever. So even if it becomes unnecessary, the variance is approved. This is a cart before the horse, self-created hardship. Last year, you denied a variance, and the applicant appealed your ruling. Here's the final report by the duly appointed hearing officer. They said you did the right thing by denying it, and they gave these legal citations supporting your denial. The burden to prove the existence of the required hardship and unique conditions is on the applicant seeking a variance. Under Florida law, a mere economic disadvantage or the owner's mere preference as to what he would like to do with the property is not sufficient to constitute a hardship entitling the owner to a variance. Florida courts find the hardship required for a variance only when the property is virtually unusable or incapable of yielding reasonable return when used pursuant to zoning regulations, and hardship must arise unrelated to the self-originated expectations of its owners. There is no vested right under Florida law to develop property to the maximum gross density in the property's zoning district or land use classification. To hold otherwise would negate the ability of the city to require set-asides for wetlands, stormwater retention, right-of-way reservation, etc. The city's tree regulations are no different and must be included in the due diligence calculations performed by a developer of the potential net density yield of a site. There is no hardship here. They just want to do more than they can do. That is not a hardship. These live oaks, particularly that one, is the most valuable tree in the state. Live oaks are the strongest and most storm resistant trees in the state, as Stephen Eister has testified to many times. The tree code is there for a reason. They have not proved a hardship. Please deny these two variances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Allison Date, 2403 West Chicago, and I have been sworn in. And I'm going to sort of reiterate what was just said, because I think that we're losing our canopy. We're still losing our canopy, and a lot of it's happening in smaller neighborhoods, in housing projects, but it's also happening in projects like this that are trying to use up every square inch of a piece of property instead of leaving borders and setbacks. And when I first looked at this picture, I thought, wow, look at all those trees around there. Isn't that nice? Because if you go out walking in some place like that, that's what you want to do, and I'm outside a lot. So I understand that they all can't be saved, but the three live oaks need to be saved because they're the most valuable tree that we have, and we need those. And a lot of the other ones that are there could be saved also, because it's better to use established trees. It's real easy to just put them in and they look very nice on the picture, but they don't survive. It's hard, especially with the climate the way it is, for trees to survive. So I implore you to please ask them to redesign, to use one of the reconfigurations and save as many trees as they can. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now, if there are questions from the board for staff, the applicant, or any of the members of the audience that spoke.
I have a question. Is there a pool transit that runs near this area for students at USF?
There's a bus system that runs now. I think that the goal that USF had was to preserve a future transit corridor in that area that potentially could connect to the redeveloped Mosey site. And again, this was not a request of our client. Our client was in front of City Council, and they came to us and said, we're looking at the larger area, we're looking at the redevelopment of this larger Fowler Avenue area, and we think that it's smart to preserve a future transit corridor in that area because that's the goal of the region. Obviously, I think maybe a lot of us could agree on that. And they said, we would like you to design your site in a way that would preserve the ability to put that future transit corridor in if we can make that happen. And So again, we're trying to be developers that are, you know, responsible, respectful to what city council wants, what the larger area wants. And so we redesigned the building a little bit to move the buildings closer to Fowler to protect that area in the rear. Again, that created, it didn't create all of the hardships, but I'm saying that had a factor in creating the plan that got approved by city council. And again, it was after multiple discussions. It wasn't just, you know, coming there once. We were there 3 to 4 times. And there was a lot of discussion, and they were very specific on things they wanted. They wanted the retail in the front, they wanted it closer to Fowler, they wanted the preservation of the future rail corridor in the rear. And unfortunately, because of the specific way that we went about that in order to create the affordable housing units within the project, we didn't have a PD, so they were not able to deal with these issues. And we knew we'd have to come back to this board, and we knew that we would have to make the argument, the case as to why this was appropriate.
I've also noticed on the drawing there, there doesn't seem to be enough parking for the number of units that you have.
Can I speak to that? Yeah. Let Elvis speak. Why don't you introduce yourself and just explain the parking.
And just a reminder
Yeah.
to state your name, address, and concern.
Elvis Ramon, I was sworn in, 14229 Southwest 15th Street, Miami, Florida. So what can I basically tell you? I mean, they said it all. I mean, we've gone, say again?
The parking too.
The parking, okay, so addressing the parking. We actually, underneath the buildings, there is parking as well. So it's not only outside. So it's a podium style design, and we have to provide 12,000 square feet. That's one of the requirements the city had for us. So in the front, you have the retail space, but right behind that, all you have is parking underneath those buildings. So the bottom floor is all parking underneath them. And that's how we come up with the numbers sufficient to meet their requirements.
So
Does
the
that-
parking's not visible from Fowler? You're seeing the storefronts on Fowler?
No, it is not visible from, that was a requirement from USF. And they have a requirement on McKinley, how it's gonna look the parking. So how are we gonna shade it so you don't see it even from McKinley? From Fowler, you won't see it. From Fowler, you have a 10-foot sidewalk. That was another requirement that they had, so the kids could travel a lot easier through that corridor there. And so basically, we have a 10-foot sidewalk on the front. We have 30 feet back of retail space across the front, and everything from there back is all parking underneath it. So you have like 600 parking spaces underneath those 3 buildings, basically.
Okay.
Because they're mostly compact, and the standard parking spaces are on the outside.
So on the densest plan that you've shown us, there are 627 units, is that correct? 627
units, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how many do you lose if we deny the trees?
Like Rick said, it's catastrophic and a lot of different reasons why. If you look at it on an architecture joints, they're all exactly the same, all 3 buildings. So, you know, you have architecture fees, right? If you start changing the size of the different, if you make all buildings different, there's gonna be more architecture, I guess, joints that I'm gonna have to have made, and more fees on that as well.
Okay, I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm an architect, I understand. But
Okay.
what I'm asking is, how many units do you lose?
Like 75 units, I guess, 75 or 80 units.
For the grain tree specifically.
Yes,
for that branch.
We haven't accounted for the unit loss that would potentially be associated with the.
Thank you.
There'd be a retail loss associated with the
As well.
retention.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd be down from 627 units to,
So, five
5 something,
550?
550, yeah.
okay,
550 and no
give or
retail.
take.
And the retail was a specific requirement of city council. They asked us to increase the retail in the project that was originally proposed and agreed to a minimum amount of retail.
We had said
And-
6 to 12,000
Yeah,
square
and
feet.
they wanted a
They
minimum
came
of
back
12.
and they said, no, I'd rather you put in there 12,000 square feet. That was their recommendation, so.
Well, if you.
I'm actually, you know, I guess we should have kept you guys first in a way, because the truth is, we went in front of the city board like 5 times already. And every time, you know, at the beginning we had approvals, USF came in and said, oh, but we have our some requirements that we want, and all of a sudden they said, nah, you're not gonna get it. Go talk to USF. USF came up, everything they wanted, we actually gave it to them, and we changed the buildings basically to what they wanted in a way.
Okay, so when you bring it down to 550 units, you also have less parking requirements, correct?
Well, the parking, most of the parking is underneath the buildings.
I understand, that wasn't the
Yes.
question.
Yes, ma'am, yes, correct.
Okay, and how, do you have a number I can quantify that?
I believe they're saying it's one
1 per thousand.
per thousand, right? Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So, I mean, it probably would be the same parking the same parking would probably be accommodated. The adjusted parking would be accommodated.
I'm just trying to figure out land-wise, how much square footage, acreage, whatever you want to call it, on a site plan, you would have available for saving some of these trees.
Yeah.
There's several ways to rebuild this. Not just
Okay, preserving,
Yes. Well, they notched it.
without doing the math here, preserving preserving the fallow trees would result in a 60-foot setback beyond what's currently there. That's not accounted for in the unit loss portion of that analysis. The 550 was based on a notch out here, here, and here. So there's an currently unknown number, but more than 550. If these are, pardon me here, 100 foot, 200 times 60, 12,000 loss per floor. So 36,000 square feet more green space offset for plates of floor area.
I understand. I'm just, it's 3 trees that you're asking for the removal. And I was just trying to figure out if there's any way to save at least one of those trees. For instance, the one that's got the 197 next to it on.
It's the B4.
Thank you, yeah.
The truth is, ma'am, I love trees. I used to own a property right behind the VA, and he had a bunch of oak trees. And if I could keep the trees, I would be more than willing to, to work around it. But the truth is, it is difficult because of the location they're in to begin with. Where they planted them to begin with, on top of those buildings,
Well,
I
You
know
live
they're
in
there
Mi-
now, and
you live in Miami. Miami has virtually zero tree canopy.
actually, if you
Tampa-
go, that's
No,
not true.
I'm from there. I grew up there. I know it very well. So don't even go there.
Okay.
Tampa takes its tree canopy very seriously, and it has been decreasing. I mean, in the last, 5 years or so, we were actually named the city with the most tree canopy. So anything that we can do to save any trees, we would certainly like to think that you would consider them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
I have a question. So, this hypothetical transportation corridor, what plans, if any, are in place for such a thing? Or is this merely just something that's being held out in case something were to happen someday, sometime in the future? I'm very curious about that, because my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's an eradication of a significant amount of trees, correct? In that area? Significant. For something that that's hypothetical, correct?
Yeah, the Stephen Eister with Natural Resources. Yes, the 2 requests are for grade tree removal and the retention percentage from 50% to 25%. So it is a large removal.
Can you put the diagram back up showing the hypothetical transportation corridor? I think to me it's very clear that it's not just 3 trees we're talking about. we're talking about a significant amount of trees that will come out from where that dashed line is, correct?
This is the corridor.
Correct.
Alignment. The trees would be impacted for the project parking,
Yep.
they're already proposed. The main trees that wouldn't be impacted are in this area, but I guess we're not accounting for the footprint of what that transit corridor would end up being.
Do you have, so in just that transportation corridor, how many trees are impacted by that hypothetical plan?
38 trees would be impacted by that. And the delta between, or of our request for retention is 20 trees. So we're requesting that you allow us to remove 20 additional, for the retention criteria, 20 additional trees than would normally be allowed. So that's the,
So for a total of 23 trees is what you're asking for?
we're preserving 34. We need to preserve 54. So this variance, this half of the variance request is for 20 trees that are mostly located north half of the site.
Do we have the grading on those 20 trees? Like
Sorry?
what is the health of those 20 trees that you're asking for?
All fair or better, which is what they have to be in order to meet in order to
Yeah.
count towards retention.
Right.
So they're all retention worthy.
Yeah.
Just to confirm that the 20 additional trees that you're asking, or the total of 54 trees that you're seeking to remove, includes the 3 grand trees that you're seeking to remove.
Correct. They count as a tree, just like a 5-inch tree. In the eyes of retention, they're equal 1 to 1.
Thank you.
It's not gonna happen for sure, but we're trying to preserve
Sorry.
No, I was just
We
going
asked you to come up here to talk about the transportation corridor, so please do that.
Right. So when we looked at the initial site plan, right, it became apparent that there could be a potential link to the CSX line that connects all the way up through Yingling. There was a previous time where the rail continued through this area, and so it is something, as we look at the larger Fowler corridor, which is something USF is concerned with, this is something that we saw as something that we would like to be able to preserve in some way. The original site plan that we had seen did have some parking in that area, and so what we were looking for was language within that master agreement that could make it possible in the future if that rail potential was there.
Thank you. I have some questions about the negotiations with City Council. Were trees or tree retention discussed during your various meetings with the city?
No, you know, they looked at the site plans and but we didn't really talk about trees because they, you know, again, because we were not doing a PD and because they didn't have the ability, because we said, they said you're gonna have to go back to the variance review board, and we said, well, can we just put those requests in? We knew we were gonna have to come back for grand trees. And we said, can we go ahead and put that in this request because we're looking at the site? And they said, no, because you're not doing a PD, we don't have the ability to approve that. So we talked about it very generally, but we didn't get really into specifics with them because they were requiring us to come back to VRB.
Okay, so they understood that there were going to be trees impacted, but they
Right.
are deferring to this board.
Right, because they didn't have the authority under that particular provision we're going under in order to approve that. So they didn't have, we talked to legal about it. They said, no, we can't do that. And again, let me just clarify one thing. USF is not the developer of this project. They have nothing to do with the project financially. They've been very supportive, and we've been trying to work with them because my client feels like this property would be a natural for USF students, for USF staff. And so we've been trying to be, you know, very open with them. And City Council obviously picked up on that. Carol Post, who used to be at the city as at USF, she convened a meeting and wanted, you know, they had some very specific comments, which council really wanted us to take to heart and consider very seriously. So that's why they sent us back. Elvis went to USF, had a high-level meeting with them, came up, they said, you know, we can come, you know, we really want you to do this project in this way. You know, again, but they're not they're not the developer. They're being very generous with their time to be here to help us, but it's not their project. It's, you know, it's Elvis and Michael's project.
Okay, thank you for that. So as part of the grand tree removal, we require a reasonable reconfiguration. You've showed us 2 reasonable reconfigurations. Actually, my question is still for, well, I'll defer to whoever wants to answer it, but if we were to say one of your sites, the one that's up on the screen, for example, is a reasonable reconfiguration, would you have to go back to city council to get that approved or do an amendment to the development agreement?
My understanding is that we would, but we would obviously work with city legal to see if they have any, you know, any administrative ability to, but I don't believe they do, because they, and you might speak to that, but they made it pretty clear to us at the hearing that really any changes to that would require us to go back through the process, but maybe.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. So that answer is not for this board to, that's not a factor in your consideration. If you believe that there's not been competent and substantial evidence to support the request based on what's presented to the board, then that's your decision. As a result of your decision, then the applicant will have to deal with it after the fact.
Well, and the reason it feels a little bit relevant to me is that one of the applicant's arguments is that this isn't a self-created hardship because the city has imposed this development agreement on the applicant.
It's actually not the city imposing this agreement. This is this applicant, this property owner coming to the city asking for this project. So the city did not reach out to this applicant to make this agreement. This is it's the reverse.
Okay.
And the city council approved this project as it was presented, but I don't want this board to say that the city is delegating, this is the project. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and that's a fair point. So can you maybe give me a little bit of background of like why a development agreement as opposed to the PD example that's been brought up? Like why is the development agreement what was required for that 10% affordable housing sort of threshold?
That is the process that this applicant chose to take in order to obtain the affordable housing initiative. So that's why they went to city council to get the approval.
Well, again, the process that we went through, it was a state-created process that applied to municipalities. I think it's now been extended to counties as well, provided that if you were doing a project that had at least 10% affordable housing in it, and again, like if you look at the Live Local Act, it requires the city to approve a project that has at least 40% affordable housing. You don't have a hearing, they do it administratively. This particular statute, which was a predecessor to that, said if you have at least 10% affordable housing in your proposal, you can go straight to the city council for a hearing without having to consider whether you're consistent with the comprehensive plan or change your zoning. So she's absolutely right. The city didn't come to us and say, please do this project here. We presented this request to the city, but they did have a tremendous amount of input in the final result. They had very specific comments on the site plan, on how much retail, council member Hertek was like, we want more than 6,000, we want 12,000. We want you to work with USF, we want you to try to accommodate all of their requests. So, it's not like we just said, hey, can we do this? And they said yes. It was a lot of back and forth, and I understand that this is unusual and it's not the type of hearing that you guys usually have, and obviously we'll respect whatever this board does and deal with it appropriately. That's it. That's all I have to say right now.
So I just want to make 100% clear that I understand sort of the process, and so the reason that you wanted to do the development agreement in the first place is because you wanted to take advantage of, for various reasons, that you wanted to provide affordable housing, but also to take advantage of some of the benefits associated with that affordable housing allocation.
Correct. It allowed you to essentially have an expedited process, but it didn't actually come up with a PD, even though it has a site plan attached. So it's a little hard to understand the distinction, but
But 10% of the units will in fact
Correct.
be earmarked.
They're
as a-
required to. There's a covenant running with the property that runs for, I believe 30 years. It requires that. That's something that the city obviously will monitor.
All right, any other questions from the board? All right. So the applicant has 5 minutes for rebuttal.
Do you have anything else? Go ahead, yeah.
I'll be brief, board. Ricky Pederica, I've been sworn. Regarding the design exceptions, just to repeat, we're here for 2 requests, the removal of 3 grand trees and the removal of 20 or 17, technically, additional trees in order to meet the variance, the retention request. The design exception is not a play, just want to kind of clarify that, because what we've applied for is storefront residential. That's a Group C use, and we're adjacent to other Group C uses, therefore it's 0. Just want to kind of take that out of consideration. And regarding the transit corridor, if it's not preserved, it's quashed. So we're proposing, we've made this adjustment in order to maintain the potential for there to be one, but for the opportunity for one to occur. If we didn't, it would not occur. So the hypothetical appearance is really a commitment to a potential. So I want to apologize for the kind of complicated nature of this one, with 2 requests and obviously a previous history. But I appreciate your attention and consideration. Look forward to it.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for discussion from the board.
I think there's got to be a compromise here. I'm looking at this site plan and I'm seeing 3 rectangles. And, you can't just plop 3 rectangles and expect everything is going to sit around it. So I'd like to see, I'm not entirely opposed, I understand what they're going for. 627 units is an awful lot of units in this site that's quite frankly not that big, but I think there's got to be a compromise here somewhere, because I'm not in favor of what I've seen.
I would agree with that. I feel like it's a huge request on a serious reduction of our tree canopy, especially in an area where the tree canopy is thriving. To take away the carbon sequestration that is currently happening in that area and to reduce that by taking out that many trees is pretty devastating.
I agree with you guys. I hate the idea of losing trees, especially the trees that's that nice. But you've got 80s brick buildings that they put a tree next to in 1980, whatever. And if anything needs to go there, those trees are going to be disturbed to the point where they're probably not going to be savable. If they take those trees out and they go through all that effort, it's going to be very difficult. Say they kept that tree well and they put a 100-foot story building around it on 3 sides. That tree's going to grow off to one side and just over a while. I'm just saying, we as a city, we're trying to see Tampa grow. USF is a huge asset to the city of Tampa. I love the fact that USF is growing, has a wonderful, education for people, medical, engineering, sports. This is also something that brings great people to the city of Tampa. We have people from USF up here telling us that they need the student housing. They need
do.
the retail front.
My son attends there. I
I'm
understand
familiar
the
with this
student
area.
housing
They also need
crisis.
affordable housing. If you've driven through those neighborhoods, it's pretty tough.
It is.
So, as much as I hate to see a tree go, the 3 trees, it's awful, and the number of the small trees is also terrible, but.
Well, let me do this.
We have to have some sort of development in Tampa to help USF and the student housing.
Well, I'd just like to focus or refocus us all on our mandate, which is a reasonable reconfiguration standard. I have said in the past, first of all, I've said in the past that approving removal of grand trees is my least enjoyable thing that we do on this board. It is It's unfortunate that that is something that happens, but it's part of city planning and growth. And in my mind, this is exactly what city planning is all about, right? This is about putting existing and future uses on the table. It's about evaluating those things, balancing them against the planned use and the existing use and removal of trees. And as it relates to reasonable reconfiguration, I've said you can't just put a big box on a lot, the biggest box you can possibly fit, and say, well, I can't do anything else and you can't maneuver around my box, so therefore the trees have to go. That's not what's happening here, right? This is a lot of hands and a lot of eyes have been on this property and have, through the use of a development agreement, have come to a conclusion that this is the way the planning should go. And from our mandate, reasonable reconfiguration, if you're taking a huge chunk of these units out, I get it, to preserve some one or two very good quality trees and a bunch of other decent quality trees. I get it, but I don't think that's how the rules are at play. The city has given us directive as to what we're supposed to do. I'm looking at the reasonable reconfiguration standard, and I don't think that cutting out huge chunks of these buildings and how that impacts the design and the architecture and the extensive planning for this property, I don't think that that's what we are permitted to do. And I think from that perspective, I am in support of what we're being asked to do. I hate taking down trees. I hate that these trees would go, but.
Do you think it's an all or nothing proposition?
I do in this scenario. I do, because I see the box, I see the change and how it would impact the corridor. My main question looking at this plan was, why are we moving it so close to the street? Wouldn't you want as many trees as you could possibly get on this site? Wouldn't you want to do that? But I see how they've tried to plan around it, and I see how they've tried to accommodate the many different influences and interests that are at play here. And I do think that it's an all or nothing.
I think that moving it to the street is probably the best thing they did here. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that really makes it much more, livable and walkable feeling.
Well, that's why I'm not an architect.
Well,
just a dumb lawyer. but I do think that's the way it's planned. That's the way it is. And I get that there's the reduction in trees, and I don't like it. But I think that our mandate is a reasonable reconfiguration.
Well,
and I don't think cutting big chunks out of it is reasonable.
I agree. You both have swayed me. I was definitely on the fence about this, because I do feel in some ways the cart was put before the horse, and now they're coming to us because everybody's like, oh, this is such a great idea. Whoops, we've got to talk about the trees, right? That's how I feel about this. But at the same time, Aaron, you brought up a very good point, that a reasonable reconfiguration that they presented to us is putting boxes around these trees. And do I feel that these trees would survive something like that? I don't. Especially during the construction process, I feel that the trees could be impacted. And then where are we? The trees are coming down. And I have been, I've really listening to you guys, and understanding too that this, this city and our county has been so impacted by issues with transportation. And here is kind of a forward thinking about, well, let's keep this area open for future transportation. And it all just comes into play, and I tend to agree with you that I would support their request.
And so we've talked a lot about the reasonable reconfiguration standard, and I think that there have been some good arguments made on both sides. But I also want to talk about the hardship criteria, because the second part of what we're supposed to be doing here is evaluating whether, whether we approve or disapprove, well, I suppose that it's somewhat contingent on assuming approval of removal of the grand trees. We are also asked to approve removal of additional trees such that only 25% of the trees on the site remain. I think that's the right number.
Yeah, from 50 to 25.
Yeah, so, I also want to focus a little bit on the hardship criteria, and the two sort of hardship criteria that stand out to me that are applicable to this site are the uniqueness of the property. And this is, sort of from a high level view, a standard property on Fowler Avenue, but what we've learned tonight is that there's a development agreement involved. We've learned that there's a potential transportation corridor that is really contingent on this particular location. So I think that we've seen some practical difficulties that are unique and singular to the site. I know that probably not everyone up here agrees that this is not wouldn't agree with me that this isn't a self-created hardship by the applicant, but I do think that the fact that, to Mr. Feldman's point, so many hands have looked at this property and the site plan that is presented before us is what all of those interests have come up with, leans in favor of this not being a completely self-created hardship.
I think that they presented some alternates that I don't think they would have presented it if they couldn't pull it off. Because our tree expert here, who is like, if I ever have any questions, I'm gonna go to you. I don't think they would have done those plans without getting some feedback from you. And I totally love that you're pushing it forward. But if you've lived in Tampa long enough, and I have, you remember when USF was just this barren, nothing piece of property. And slowly but surely, all of these beautiful trees have grown up on their campus. And you'd like to think that feeling is going to continue to the neighborhoods around it. And darn it, if you'd ask for two of these trees, I'd probably say, heck yeah. But the fact that you're telling me you can't make an effort to save one of them, that just, I can't support it, I'm sorry. And I know you guys have already gone through all of this, but, well, no, not, yeah, that's not in question. I just, you're gonna have three buildings here who are basically rectangles, just straight facades on all four sides. There's nothing of interest, there's nothing that juts in and out, there's no, anything that in any way makes it other than three rectangles. Yeah, I see that, and what do you see? Pretty much what I saw, correct? Well, yeah, that doesn't, people driving by aren't gonna see that. So, I'll shut up after this. It sounds like you've got your votes, and we can call the question if that's what you'd like, but I'm terribly disappointed.
No, I hear you, and especially from an architect's perspective, the interest and the how to make this work, I would think is fascinating, but that's not our mandate. Our mandate is not to redesign the property.
No.
or to, frankly, from what I heard from the testimony, there was, well, we wanted to put it here, but we were asked to move it closer to the street, and we were asked to put retail in, and we were asked to preserve a transit corridor, and all of those things add up to what is the configuration as it's set, and a reasonable reconfiguration. I don't think we have the ability in this scenario, again, being a unique scenario, to say, well, I'm gonna cut a wedge out here, and I'm gonna cut a wedge out here, and I'm gonna redesign your property. Yeah, because they were required to put a map together, but they also showed us how that impacts their plan. And that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
is
I'm not
how
gonna,
does that
I don't,
configuration flow?
we're obviously not, we're gonna agree to disagree.
Fair plan. So, I feel like I've already done two. But
You're on a
if
roll.
this board would like me to try a third, I will give it a shot. And of course, this is gonna be the hardest.
Oh, so do we split this into two different?
I don't think so. I think you read both of
I would do it that way,
I
yeah.
thought we just agreed there was one variance request.
Is,
That's one application.
right, it's one
One
application.
So in one application, you could separate your motions if that's the desire.
But it is not something that is required.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's not required for you to do that.
All right, good.
So it's like granting a front yard setback, but not a side yard setback when we get a, just like.
Right,
Okay.
right. So we can vote on it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
If for some reason that doesn't work, then we can work on splitting up. So I'm going to try it this way, and we'll see how it goes. And this has been, I'm feeling exhausted from just this, but we'll give it a shot. I move that variance request for case VRB 24-21 for property located at 4105 East Fowler Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for removal of a grand tree or of three non-hazardous grand trees and to reduce the required tree retention from 50 feet to 25 feet.
Percentage.
Thank you. From 50% to 25%. Told you I was exhausted. Based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof that the trees would be rendered hazardous by proposed construction that cannot be reasonably reconfigured when considering the factors set forth in section 27-284-5F of the City Code for grand tree removal, specifically that the evidence provided in the record and in this public hearing showed that the parties, the applicant has already been in deep discussion with the city, with USF for development agreement approval, that the site plan has been altered based upon and designed in a way based upon all of the interests at play, that they had been encouraged to move the buildings closer to Fowler Avenue, which directly impacts some of these trees and the tree retention percentage, that the potential for a transit line through this property also impacts the trees and the reasonable reconfiguration that it could be applied, and impacts the retention percentage as well.
Motion by Mr. Feldman,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Murphy. All those in favor of the motion to approve the removal of 3 non-hazardous grand trees and the reduction of the tree retention from 50 to 25%, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, your variance is approved 4-2.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Good God. And then he starts explaining.
So the last case on the agenda tonight is VRB 24-24. The owner is BTHAP LLC, and then the applicant is Signs Permits Plus. The property address is 2207 East Hillsborough Avenue. The zoning is commercial intensive. This is another 2-part request. It's for a wall sign at 125 square feet, where only 25 square feet is allowed by the East Tampa overlay. And then an increase in maximum letter height of 3 feet 9 inches, where only 12-inch letters are allowed. The code section is 27-240, which outlines the requirements for wall signs in East Tampa. This is a map of the site. As you can see, it's a large shopping center in the commercial intensive zoning district. This is the site plan showing where the new 5 below is being proposed there in the bottom right corner. This is a rendering of the sign that's being requested. All reviewers for this case were consistent or consistent with conditions. And then the VRB 27-80 standards. These are the applicant's responses. I'll let you guys take a quick look at those. They are also included in your packet. And then the site will comply with chapters 5, 17.5, 21, 22, 23, and 26, and all technical standards of the City of Tampa and chapter 27, unless specifically waived to this request. And then I'm available if you guys have any comments.
Good evening, Jamie Mayer of the law firm Hillward Henderson, 101 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 3700, and I have been sworn. I'm going to try to keep it quick. This is a variance from, as Mr. Iser explained, the East Tampa overlay district standards for a sign, and this is zone CI, so the underlying CI zoning district would allow for a much larger sign, which I'll show you in a moment. The request is for a total of 125 square feet, which is in line with these underlying normal sign code standards if it were just zone CI and we're not in the overlay. And also the letter height would be 3 feet 9 inches, again, would be permitted under the normal CI district standards. I will note that this is for Five Below, as was mentioned, which is a national discount retailer who sells products to typically aimed at teens, tweens. They're very popular stores for $5 or below, typically, as the name suggests. So this is the former store, the former retail store that was there. I believe they went bankrupt, but Dot's sign actually also very much exceeds the East Tampa overlay standards. So the previous sign exceeds the East Tampa overlay standards, and it takes up more total square footage than the proposed Five Below sign will. So technically, although we're requesting a sign that exceeds the East Tampa overlay standards, it does take up a total of less square footage than the prior sign. So again, here's what is proposed. It's about what you would expect for a big box retailer. And here's the sign that would be permitted under the East Tampa overlay standards. Here is a view of, this is when Dots is still, until it's Five Below, it's been Dots. You can see the sign from the street. And this is from the other side of Hillsborough Avenue. A lot of lanes in this area. It's a very busy intersection at the intersection of 22nd and Hillsborough Avenue. You can see Dots here. This is Ross Dress for Less, DD's Discounts. And you can imagine that the sign permitted by the East Tampa Overlay District would not be visible, or visible perhaps as a color, but not legible at all. And the other property, or the other tenants in this shopping center have signs that are bigger than the East Tampa Overlay as well. So you've got Ross Dress for Less adjacent. As I mentioned, DD's Discounts, so we have a lot of sign face here. Another fashion retailer, and even a nail spa whose total signage exceeds the overlay. This request is unique to the site. This structure was built in 1963, well before the East Tampa overlay or even the zoning code were at play. And the building is set back much farther than if it were built today. That wouldn't be allowed under the East Tampa overlay. So because of this very significant setback, the signage plan of this shopping center relies on these typical large big box signs to be visible from the street. And then again, as I mentioned, this is a very busy intersection, a busy area of Hillsborough Avenue, and so the signage plan relies on these signs to provide clear identification and safe ingress and egress to the site. It's not self-imposed. The applicant cannot alter the location of the building. They cannot alter the fact that it was built well before the East Tampa overlay and the fact that it does not meet the overlay district standards for setbacks from the street. It's supposed to be closer, so you wouldn't need as big of a sign. No injury to the surrounding area would result from this. As you can see, this sign takes up a little less vertical space than the prior Dot sign. All the other signs in the shopping center are larger than what the East Tampa overlay would allow. And it does serve the necessary purpose of providing clear
readable signage to the retailer. It satisfies the comprehensive plan's intent, its reuse of existing non-residential building stock. I will note that the overlay does provide a general exemption for non-residential lots that exist as of January 2000, so for the lots that predated the overlay. So there is an argument to be made, frankly, that this might not even apply to this site, but in an abundance of caution, we're asking for the variance. And overall, I think the facts and circumstances here weigh in favor of granting the variance. You've seen the sign that would be permitted under the code. It's almost comically small compared to this existing shopping center that was built way before this overlay and is much more of a traditional big box center. A strict application of the code would create a hardship not only just for the practical visibility of the sign, but also it will give existing businesses in this shopping center who already have big signs an advantage over any other tenants who would be coming into this unit and would have to be, without a variance, limited to not being seen like the other tenants. So we respectfully request this board's approval and are here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this application? And then, questions from the board? Seeing none, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal should you need it.
I'm all right, thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up for a motion or discussion from the board.
Send it down here, Fred.
Oh, come on, come on, you got it memorized by now.
Give Mr. Feldman a break. All right, I would like to make a motion that the variance request for case VRB 24-24 for property located at 2207 East Hillsborough Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a wall sign at 125 square feet, where 25 square feet is allowed by code, and a maximum letter height of 3 feet 9 inches, where 12 inches allowed in the East Tampa Overlay District. Based upon applicant presenting competent, substantial evidence in the record at this public hearing for a necessary hardship or practical difficulty when considering the 5 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-80 of the city code, specifically that this is a new retailer that is taking over a space that already had a much larger sign than the one being requested. This is an older retail center built in the 60s before the overlay district existed, and quite possibly might not even need this variance. Also to keep with the existing style and look of the other retailers within the area.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Murphy, second by Ms. Walrath. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Your variance is approved 6-0. All right, this meeting is adjourned.
The most, you know, you have one, right, off to the side, you have a